Hey, everybody. What is going on? Thanks for watching. My name is Chris. That's Pat Murray, and he's here to help me be smarter about what has happened over the course of the NFL draft. Hello, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Excited to talk some football.
Yes, sir. All right, so we have the results. It's happened. And we still don't really know much, and this is the point at which we pretend we do based on situations and landing spots and things like that. We're going to talk about probably it's going to be a hybrid conversation between NFL and fantasy, a little fantasy sort of mixed in. It's clearly a wide receiver class. Let's start with the wide receivers who wound up going in the first round. It wound up being 6. Pat, you, for this very YouTube channel, did videos breaking down film on all 6 of the players that the good folks are looking at right now. But now they all have landing spots. I wonder, I mean, you know, we'll link off to all the breakdowns if people want to go real deep on a player that wound up on their NFL team. But is there one landing spot here that you go, ooh, I'm intrigued by that?
You know, I'm a little disappointed in some of the landing spots for these guys. I was hoping that at least one of these guys would fall down to Green Bay or Kansas City in a really exciting type offense. If I got to pick one, I think I do have 2 actually that kind of stand out to me. Drake London going to the Falcons just because the Falcons don't have anybody at wide receiver pretty much. I mean, they have Kyle Pitts at tight end. So there's obviously going to be some opportunity there for London. He's a big guy. With a huge catch radius that can make a lot of catches and jump up over people's heads and rip the ball out. So I think that's interesting. And then Chris Olave going to New Orleans, having him opposite of Michael Thomas, I think that's interesting. He's a really smooth route runner with some speed. So I think those 2 are pretty interesting spots. And then the other ones, we're going to have to see how things kind of shape out in the pecking order of those wide receiver groups. And then, of course, Jameson Williams is coming off the ACL, so we don't know quite when he's going to be able to play.
Right. I will say about Drake London, great. Your main competition is Auden Tate. Fantastic. Who's throwing you the ball? Not the best situation there. But you know, it might wind up being a rookie, and it might wind up being Marcus Mariota. If you had to do a dynasty rookie draft right now, and you had the number 1 overall pick for a fantasy league that drafts dynasty guys that you have for all their career or a big portion of their career, is the name that you would take number 1 overall in the list of 6 names that we just saw?
I would say, yeah, I think to me, over the long term, Jameson Williams is going to be the best player of this group, of this rookie class in terms of fantasy.
Okay.
Not thrilled about the guy who's going to be throwing him the football this season.
Not much longer. Yeah, right, not much longer. Yeah,
maybe it winds up being Bryce Young throwing him the football again after next season. You know, who knows? Right. So I think over the long term, Jameson Williams is that guy with the highest ceiling in this draft for me.
I will add that I asked, on behalf of a friend of mine, I asked Matt Waldman, who comes on my podcast pretty regularly, if the same question. And he hemmed and he hawed, and he didn't really have I don't think there is a clear answer. I think if people are leaning a bunch of different ways, that's okay. He said he thought maybe Chris Olave, just because he's starting out with a better baseline of quarterback. He's got maybe Jameis Winston for a year or maybe more. And Jameis is not great, but he will be aggressive. And that also, he just likes Olave's skill set, which I know you do as well. So there was one other skill player who was drafted in the first round on last Thursday night, and it was Kenny Pickett, the quarterback I think that we maybe didn't expect. I'd seen Malik Willis mocked to the Steelers over and over and over again. The Steelers for sure wanted a quarterback, but Malik Willis wasn't the guy. Instead, it was tiny-handed Kenny Pickett, who's going to fumble 7,000 times in Pittsburgh, but not really. What do you think of Kenny Pickett?
I'm not worried about the hands. I thought Louis Riddick had a really good explanation for it on ESPN during the draft about, he's got the double jointed thumb, and that when he's holding the football, it wraps around the football. But when his hand is flat and being measured, then his thumb is kind of messed up and it's not going to measure quite as big. So it's a weird situation, but I think Kenny Pickett is a solid guy. I think he'll wind up starting there in Pittsburgh, maybe even at some point this season. A lot of people said he's the most NFL ready out of this quarterback group. I could see that. He does some of the little things well. He can do the full field reads, made some pro style reads in college. Not a huge arm, but a big enough arm to make the throws, to throw the deep out routes and things like that. Throws with anticipation. So I think he could end up starting at some point this year in Pittsburgh. Not a guy with a ton of upside, but he's solid.
So Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett. If I have Chase Claypool in a league, if I have Deontay Johnson in a league, Deontay Johnson's going to be a free agent after this year if they don't sign him to a longer-term deal. Who do I want to win the job? Whose upside do I want to turn out to be true?
That's a tough one. I think I think I'm going to go with Pickett just based upon we've seen Trubisky be terrible, right? We've seen it. And we've kind of slogged through that as fantasy guys looking for something to happen for Allen Robinson and even Darnell Mooney. And so I think in that case, you kind of root for Pickett and see if maybe he has some more upside and can give that offense a little bit more firepower.
A fair answer and the most polite pause that I've ever heard, because you definitely were not expecting me to throw Mitch Trubisky into the equation right there. Very nice of you. Malik Willis falls to the third round, goes to the Titans. I guess, I mean, you really liked him in your video. Obviously, I think we all agree he has more upside than the quarterbacks that went in front of him. He gets to wait. He gets to learn. He's not going to play right away with Ryan Tannehill there. And Tannehill, apparently not doing spring practice. At least it's a place he can not have to play right away.
Right. That's makes it a good fit for him. The fact that he doesn't have to play right away. He's got some interesting talent around him with Derrick Henry, and then drafting Treylon Burks, regardless of what you think of the AJ Brown deal. But I think the reason for the slide is maybe just the fact of scheme fit, that if you go with Willis, you've got to commit to him when you get to that point. And eventually the Titans are going to want to move on from Tannehill's contract, maybe even after this season. They can't do it right now. But when you go to Willis, you've got to commit to him, and you've got to build the offense around him the way Baltimore's done with Lamar Jackson, the way Philly's done with Jalen Hurts. And so I think the reason for the slide is maybe teams didn't want to do that. But the upside certainly is there. If you go and watch the video on him, his ability to make throws on the run, has a huge arm to throw the deep ball, and then the designed runs, he's really good. And it's just incredible at escaping the pocket under pressure as well. So the upside is there, and we're just going to have to see if he figures out the little things and can adapt to an NFL offense, because what they did at Liberty was basically a lot of predetermined reads. Throw it here, a lot of double moves. If this guy's not open, well, then Malik's just going to make a play with his legs.
Right. Well, little Jalen, maybe a bigger arm Jalen Hurts there. I'm still intrigued. I think he maybe still is a first-round pick in a rookie draft, but you're clearly not going to get too much out of him this year. You have to be ready to stash. So I just want to thank Draftkings for sponsoring the entire this pre-draft process and sponsoring on my podcast so much. They're a one. We couldn't do these videos without them. The NBA playoffs are coming up, right? Do you have an NBA team, Pat?
I'm a Miami Heat guy.
All right. Well, I'm a Boston Celtic guy, so it's possible we're on a collision course. And DraftKings is a great place to play the games. If you live in one of the states where it's okay to have a sports book, download that DraftKings Sportsbook app. They've got a really great promotion going on right now. You can bet $5 on any team to win, and you don't have to actually win the bet. You'll get $150 in credit, basically like shop credit, that you can then bet with and turn into your own money eventually the more you bet it. It's fantastic. All you have to do is get that sportsbook app from DraftKings. Use the promo code HarrisTube. That lets them know where you found them. If you're going to be watching the NBA games anyway, and I think a lot of us will be, maybe you'll be watching a game that's not your team. There's nothing like getting a little rooting interest from placing a couple of shekels down on a team. So get the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that code HarrisTube. We really do thank DraftKings. I mean, they sponsor a lot. If you like the things that they sponsor, please do support them. All right. So let's move on to some running backs in this NFL draft. None went in the first round. We are showing the top 6 who were drafted. I'll ask you the same question. What's the landing spot here that sort of makes you sit up and take notice the most, Pat?
I think one that's interesting is James Cook in Buffalo. I was hoping that either Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall would land there because to me they're the clear-cut top two backs in this draft. I was hoping they would land in less muddied backfields, but Hall could certainly end up winning that job in New York. I do like Michael Carter though, so who knows how that turns out. But I think James Cook in Buffalo is interesting. I mean, they have Singletary and Moss there, but Cook as a receiving back, if they can get creative with the way they use him, Georgia was creative with him, lined him up in the slot and out wide. He's really good as a receiver, tough to cover. So if Buffalo can utilize that, I think he could end up being an interesting fantasy back.
Yeah, lands in a really good. I mean, we like players and offenses that we are pretty. There aren't that many offenses we can point to from year to year and say, okay, I feel pretty good. There's like a 95% chance that offense is going to be good. And the Bills with Josh Allen, they're flat out one of them now. They just are. Who would have thought it a couple of years ago? Paul Perticchese came on the podcast and said right then, James Cook is going to go higher than people think, and he thinks he's like a maybe slightly less good Alvin Kamara, which is still very, very good, which kind of conforms exactly with what you're saying about the potential usage. Probably not an every down back right away, but very, very interesting. I'll just mention also Rachaad White going to the Buccaneers, another player landing in a good offense. And the reason we probably talked about Rachaad White on the podcast more than like any other player maybe in the entire draft, because two of our guys, Paul Perticchese and Brett Coleman, viewed Rachaad White as like a sneaky top 5 back. And then I asked Matt Waldman and he was like, no. Kenyon Drake, he's going to disappoint you. He looks good in the uniform, and then winds up not performing. Obviously, we don't know, and Leonard Fournette is there. But when Rachaad White went to Tampa, did you perk up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting with Ronald Jones gone there, and they have Fournette, but again, that's an offense that you look at and say, hey, they're going to be good. So anybody that has a chance at touching the football with them, you're intrigued about.
Absolutely. I wish all three of our podcast experts had like fallen in line, and I would have been really excited. Matt threw cold water on the whole thing. All right. So lastly, you know what? Let's just hit some skill players who landed in what I know is coming, an avalanche of positivity about their landing spots. So now we're going kind of, we're going further down the list here, but like, you land as a receiver in Green Bay when the Packers don't take a receiver in the first couple of rounds, or you land as a supplemental receiver in Kansas. I mean, there's really potential value here. It might take an injury for all these guys to really find their fullest form. But when you look at this list of names, who pops out to you?
The one that sticks out is one we talked about in our last video we did is Algier in Atlanta. I mean, just the fact of that backfield, they had to move Cordero Patterson back there last year. And I think he's a guy, a big back, could definitely get some goal line carries, a guy with good contact balance. He could end up taking that job there. So he's pretty interesting to me. And then Sky Moore, just the fact of being in Kansas City, he's a really quick and sudden guy. Having Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football, that could end up being interesting down the road. And another one that we don't have on the list, just to keep an eye on, is Dameon Pierce in Houston. Again, just another backfield that is kind of wide open, that you wish there was a better guy there that could take the job. Maybe down the line, Pierce ends up factoring in there.
All right. Well, you like Pierce. I remember you telling me that off the air. I'll also say, like, for Antonio Gibson, rosterers out there, it's a little bit heartbreaking to have Brian Robinson wind up on that team. It tells you that what I talked about a lot on the podcast with Gibson last year, which is like, I really like him, but man, the guy makes a lot of mistakes, not just dropping the ball, not just fumbles, but just mistakes overall. I feel like maybe the Commanders have run out of patience a little bit, and they want to line up some other options. So that hurts Antonio Gibson. All right. Well, this has been fun. And obviously it's the very, very beginning and our first blush reactions to the NFL draft. There's going to be lots of processing on the podcast this coming week. I'm going to be releasing my 2022 overall ranks for fantasy. A lot of these rookies are going to work their way in to those ranks. And then, of course, just as we talk about the teams and we get to mini camps and we get to training camps and all this stuff. There's going to be lots more to say about probably a bunch of players that we didn't even talk about here. But Pat, you've done incredible work on this very channel, helping me understand, somebody who doesn't watch a lot of college football, what these prospects are. Can't thank you enough. You get to now go and take a nap for like 3 months.
Yeah, well, I got to go call some college baseball games. I'm doing the American Athletic Conference tournament up in Clearwater. So I got to get ready for that. After that, then maybe I'll take the nap and wake back up for football season. But appreciate the opportunity to be on the channel. I had a lot of fun with you guys putting these videos together.
Cool. And also thanks to Dave Piper and Dave Hewitt, who do by far the most work on this channel. Amazing job, amazing stuff from them. For Dave and Pat, I'm Chris. Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, and hope to subscribe to the channel as well. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button, and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.